Welcome to the first episode of SideQuests. I'm joined today by my guest and good friend, Soldier First Class. Today we're going to be talking about the Final Fantasy series, which has been around for a long time, but with these pixel remasters, I feel like it's getting like a big resurgence of fans involved and invested into the classics. I don't think Final Fantasy has been this prominent in the foreground since the PS1 era. I want to say
Probably not.
I don't. Yeah, I think this is the most popular or most exposure the series has gotten since the PS1 days when they were just shitting out hits left, right, and center. So
Well, and I think obviously with the Pixel remasters coming out when they did, 14 had a huge burst
at this
in
around the same
fans.
time too.
And so with people seeing what 14 was like showing you with like references and stuff like that, where references from the old games were coming up and people were like, well, what game is this from? What game is that from? And now that the Pixel remasters are out and it's the first time that people can actually play like 1 and 2 without it being on PSP or some dead console that nobody has anymore, everybody is actually able to get a hold of, on Steam at least, the Pixel remasters. And I think that's kind of helped boost everything so far.
Absolutely. I think there was 3 times, well, maybe 4 times in history where the games kind of like threw back to themselves so much that people got interested. The first I'm told is Final Fantasy V, but like I said, that one never. Well, I didn't say it yet, but that one never got released here, right? So it did later, much later on like the PS1. But apparently, like the Japanese fans, that was the first time that it really triggered like that. Wow, I want to go back and play Final Fantasy 1 and 3 and stuff like that. Was because of 5. And then the next time would have been probably Final Fantasy 9 because of all the throwbacks 9 had to the previous series. And then this next time would be, like you said, Final Fantasy 14, because these are the kind of the 3 big points where you had all these new fans come in for a game and then realizing or finding out that a lot of the stuff in these games are throwing back to previous games, so they're super interested in seeing what those games are all about.
Well, and like I've had several people that have talked to me about it and said that 14 was actually their first Final Fantasy game, and that's what got them into the series. So it is, like I said, it's very good timing for those Pixel remasters to come out and everybody to have access to those, because not gonna lie, a lot of people had only played like 15 or even most recently 7 remake and didn't really know where to start.
Yep.
Or didn't know, am I missing out by not playing the old ones? Is there like a story continuation? Which thankfully there's not, so
Yeah,
you're
at
not
this point,
technically
yeah.
missing out. Yeah, because I mean, if we were 15 in and almost 16 in and it was a continuation,
No,
number one, I think it would be drug out way too long.
yeah, no shit.
But
Yeah.
also, nobody would want to catch up with that. I mean, that's a ridiculous. That's like reading a book series and having 20 books that you have to finish. Like,
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
a very daunting task. So
Like starting One Piece, which I think didn't you do?
yes, I recently started One
Fuck
Piece,
that.
and I'm like 14 episodes in, I think, and I'm like, I do understand why people like this show. I just don't know if I have the ability to sit through 900 and some episodes, almost 1,000 episodes, to get to that point where I'm like, yeah, I fucking love One Piece, man. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not like gonna be singing its praises or anything, but I guess like going back to 14 again, it's kind of in your experience right now. There's so much that you have not played. Starting out, you're in a Realm Reborn right now, so you've got to get all the way to Shadowbringers before you can ever even think about starting Endwalker and like be on the same page as we all are. But the great thing about 14 is that you can play it at your own pace
Yeah.
and go from there. And even Yoshi P says, hey, if you're not enjoying the game right now and you want to come back later, go ahead and unsub. Go
Yeah.
ahead and, stop paying and, come back when you feel like it. Play other games. Have a life, I mean, he encourages that completely. So,
Yeah, he basically said he kind of designed it around that
yeah.
aspect, right? Because he knows people have lives, and back in the day, MMOs weren't like that. Like I always say, I'm not a big MMO guy, but there were some MMOs that I did play. I played the best one, and it's funny because I always bring this up. Nobody knows what the hell it is or was. It's called Feng Wan Online, and it was like this Chinese martial arts MMORPG. And I was at my buddy's watching UFC a couple weekends ago, and I was telling him how I was playing Final Fantasy 14, and he also is another guy that's not a big MMO guy. Like, he played WoW for a bit when it first came out, which I never did. I think I did like the 14-day trial, and I put 4 hours in, shut the game off, and uninstalled.
Yeah, I didn't like it either.
But he's like, remember that one with like the kung fu and stuff? And I was like, it's not just made up in my head, like, because nobody fucking remembers this game. But it was so much fun. But it's your typical like old school MMO where like you die, you've got res sickness for like a week in like fucking real time, right? It's like one of those.
Well, and the thing is too, like, a lot of MMOs are, kind of, if you're not here, you're missing out kind of thing. Because like WoW is really hard to get started in right now because you're, I think, like 120 levels or 130 levels is the cap now.
Oh, okay.
And you're what, 12 expansions or some shit? I don't know.
Oh, yeah, I guess.
But yeah, there's like a lot of expansions, and so I think WoW, especially in the raiding scene, I think for the most part is very, if you're not here, you're missing out kind of thing. And that's what I like about 14 is that's not the case here a lot of times. Like, yeah, if you're trying to raid, you're not going to waste time raiding the last expansion's raids. You're going to be raiding the current ones. So once you get to that level, you're not really missing out because you're on content with everybody, even if you haven't done the other raids back then. So it's kind of nice.
Yeah, the old MMOs were super rough, and then the other ones I played DC Universe Online because they had it was the PS3 version. You unlocked because I think you could play that game for free, but if you bought it on PS3, you got access to the Green Lanterns, which were like a DLC thing, and I loved Green Lantern. Like, I still kind of liked Green Lantern. I just don't follow comics really anymore. But I loved Green Lantern, and they were like your typical like status fuck kind of guys. Like, they weren't super strong, but your enemies are always being like slowed and confused and everything when you're attacking. And I loved that game. But again, every fucking MMO just devolves into better log in every day and do one daily mission. Like, oh my god, I hated that. And I'm not finding that with Final Fantasy 14, which is nice so far.
Yeah, there's never, you can do dailies, but they're not required.
Yeah.
And like, a lot of it, I only really did dailies for my alt character or my alt jobs because the MSQ gives you enough experience. You don't even need it.
Yeah, I think somebody is saying you just do the dailies to like speed up the levels of your lower job classes, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. And the good thing is too with 14 is that like if you have a job at 80 and a job at 10, you get a bonus to your experience for that job at 10 because you have that 80.
Oh, okay.
So you get a certain bonus based on like how high the highest job you have's level is. So if you have something at 80, everything below it until level 70 gets that boost.
Oh, okay. So yeah, that helps too.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, let's start with
got a little bit of a tangent there.
working through the Final Fantasy series, starting with Final Fantasy 1, which originally came out on the NES, and I did play it on the NES, and I own it on the NES, but I've never I don't know if I've ever beaten the NES version. I beat the PS1 version. How did you first play Final Fantasy 1? Do you remember?
The NES, actually.
Oh, it was the NES? Yeah.
Yeah, so I didn't play it till I was about, I want to say 13. So my family always had like Nintendos growing up. Like I had the NES, the Super NES, the Nintendo 64. And then I stopped there. I never had a GameCube, but regardless, I still do to this day actually have my old NES. And the town we lived in had like a thrift store or like a antique place, kind of whatever you'd call it.
Yeah, like a used goods store kind of thing.
So I went in there and we're, obviously these places are like just stacked with bullshit, and these people don't know
Copes.
what they have. Yeah, these people don't know what the fuck they have, right? Like they just put a price tag on something, they try to sell it for whatever they can get out of it.
Yeah.
And so I'm walking around, I'm going through all the furniture and weaving through fucking
Granny
the
coats.
fire, all the fire hazards they have sitting around. And I go to the back, and they have like electronics, like old school electronics, like lamps and alarm clocks and stuff. Well, I look at the shelf and I see an NES game. So I look at it, and it's Final Fantasy, and like at this point I'd already played like 10 and 7 and 8 and stuff. So I already knew what it was, and I was like, it was 25 cents, dude. And I was like, I gotta have this. Like, I got to have this. So I got the original Final Fantasy cartridge. I still have it for 25 cents, and I played it on the NES, and I never actually finished it on the NES.
Yeah.
But
that version was fucking hard, man.
Yeah, it was. Dude, you could go out, the first set of enemies could murk you, and it was like just nothing.
Yeah, dude. That one's hard. If you play as like a monk or whatever, karate guy or whatever it's called, you can cheese it for quite a ways, but god damn, that one's really hard. My biggest gripe with that one is the fact that it doesn't auto target if the guy you targeted is dead. I hate that too. That's the worst part of that game.
That is the worst part. I will say this though, I think it's really cool how over the years people have come up with different challenges for that game.
Oh
though.
Yeah.
Like the all white mage challenge. Like,
yeah.
I love that the systems in that game are in place that you can just make it as hard or as easy as you want.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I mean, all white mage is definitely hard mode. Like,
oh yeah, I would never
it's pretty rough.
That.
Yeah, so like, and there are people that have beaten the game like this. So I mean, it is cool that even a game that old can have fan imposed challenges that the developers probably never even intended.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's still doable. That's the thing; it's still doable, no matter how much you want to torture yourself. The game is completely playable that way. Final Fantasy 1 is another one of those games where it's like, I don't know, maybe the NES one not so much, but like the PS1 version and on, they really still hold up. Like, if you go back and play Final Fantasy 1, it's still a good game. Like, the story isn't like anything great, but just playing through the game is super fun. And
I think the optimal way to play it though, and it's hard to. So I like the idea behind the pixel remasters. The only thing I don't really like is that for 1 and 2 they don't have the Dawn of Souls content.
Right.
It's just purely based off the NES versions of the game, and while that's okay, and it's a completely viable way to play it, I think the optimal way though is to play it on the Game Boy Advance with Dawn of Souls.
See, my issue, I always like, for pretty much all across the board, if it was released on the PS1, that's always like my favorite version, and the reason is because it's the closest to the original pixels, like the closest to the original character models, and then they don't change anything like script wise other than like translation errors, and they got rid of all the censorship and stuff, right? Like that's a big thing for me with Final Fantasy IV. I absolutely hate the way the PSP games look, despite the fact that they overall, like mechanically wise, they're the better versions of the games. But I hate the fucking way, like Kane looks like he's wearing the fucking gator cap from fucking Metal Gear Solid 3. Like, I hate the character designs in those ones.
And I liked that what they did with 4, and I think it was 3 that they added voice acting to the...
Yeah, when they did the DS ones.
Yeah, but that they later ported to Steam.
Right.
And, so, I mean, I would say optimally, like, some of the... It sucks, because you want them to remaster games, and you want them to remake games, but you also want them to keep intact the things that worked.
Yes.
And sometimes when they remaster it, they take out the thing that works, and they replace it with either something they thought was better, or they just completely take that mechanic out. And that's sometimes why I don't like when they remaster stuff, because you're selling an improved product, but with less than what it had before. Like, I felt like they could have improved. Well, we'll talk about that when we get to Final Fantasy 2.
Yeah. For me, I kind of agree with you when it comes to like the pixel remasters. Like, I didn't like Dawn of Souls. Like, I didn't like any of the GBA ones because if only because, they changed some of the character models a little bit too much than I would have liked, and B, I don't like on the Game Boy Advance, and I know they had to do it because of the dark screen, but all the color palettes are like super bright and weird. Like, I don't like that. I know you can get mods now for the ROMs and stuff. Like, I know Final Fantasy V has one on I think the GBA or something like that, but that makes it look like the SNES game and makes the music more like the SNES game. In that case, that's probably the best version of the games to play. But other than that, I still think the PS1, although the pixel remasters, the character models look really close to the NES ones, which I do appreciate.
They look like high definition versions of the
NES ones.
Yeah, and they look really good.
I think another thing you were kind of getting at is I like when they improve upon it without removing anything. You know what I mean? Like, even to like the smallest detail. Like, I want the games to be preserved as much as I want them to be improved. So when I say that, I mean like when they not Final Fantasy VII Remake, but when they remastered Final Fantasy VII on the PS4, and they took out, I'm kind of contradicting myself here, but when they took out like "this guy are sick," like, that's an iconic line. Like, as stupid as that is a mistranslation, but it is an iconic line. And like Final Fantasy IV on the PS1, they fixed a lot of the translation, but there was no like super that'd be like if they took out "you spoony bard" out of Final Fantasy IV. Like, that's how iconic "this guy are sick" is. You know what I mean? So little stuff like that bothers me.
Yeah, it bothers me too. Trust me. Like, it's almost like they. What was the one? I'm trying to think. There was one other thing they fixed. Final Fantasy Tactics did it.
Right, you were saying. Yeah.
Literally, my favorite line in that entire game, it's crazy that this is my favorite line and it happens like 10 minutes into the game, but Delita's like just looks at Ramza and's like, "Blame yourself or God." And I'm like, that line is fucking baller, man. Like, holy shit. Like, I'm like, I don't know. I was like 10, 11 when that game came out. I was like, fuck yeah, let's go, you know?
You're like, this guy does not fuck around.
No, yeah. And then in the War of the Lions version, I don't remember what he says, but it's nowhere like close to what he said. Yeah, and that is like, as perfect as the War of the Lion version is, that's like the one time where I wish they had just left that line in there, because it would not change anything related to the story if they would have left that line in, you know?
Yeah.
So that's one of the times.
Little stuff like that definitely bothers me. But other than that, I want it to be as close to the original as possible. Like, clean up the graphics, do what you want, but don't change the character sprites. Don't change the dialogue unless it's like a translation issue. And if it is a translation issue, it better not be an iconic one. That's,
yeah.
I know I'm being a little fussy, but that's just the way I am. But yeah, for Final Fantasy 1, I don't really have any complaints other than, like you said, with all these pixel remasters, I would not have been offended if they included the extra content for later versions. Like, for Final Fantasy V, I knew it wasn't going to be in there, but a part of me was hoping that they would have like Dark Knight and like the extra god classes that they added, right? But I could see them, like, you know how Square Enix is now. I could see them like being like, Dawn of Souls DLC's coming out, brother.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I could see them doing that. Or when it comes to PS4 or something, because I'm pretty sure they're going to release it on console. They don't hate money that much.
Yeah. Sometimes you'd wonder that, though.
Yeah. I could see them releasing them on Steam, which is what they're doing, and then everybody buys them, and they're like, everyone was saying they want them on console, so now that they all bought it on Steam, let's release it on console, so they buy it again. I could see them do that. Because they're a little greasy now. They weren't always this greasy. Fortunately, they weren't always, but now they're a little bit greasier. But I guess some iconic moments in Final Fantasy 1. Like, there's not a lot. There's the first showdown with Garland.
It's very light on story.
Yeah, the story scroll that carries through. A couple of the early ones have that story scroll, and then I remember the elf being an absolute douche, having to fight the dark elf. The pirate fight. I think it looks like fucking Stranger Danger is gonna have the pirate fight. Just judging from some of the screenshots I saw posted on
God,
Twitter.
that game.
I don't know. I hope it's good. I hope it's good. It's made by Team Ninja, and I like almost everything they make. So
yeah.
But I think didn't they make Metroid Other M? And I heard that was like really bad.
I don't remember.
I don't know if it was them or not. It might have been like Platinum Games or something. But I just remember it wasn't it wasn't received very well. But what are some like Bahamut when you meet Bahamut?
Yeah, the rat's tail.
Time? Yeah, the rat's tail and Bahamut, and then he's like go forth, brave warriors, and you get like your fucking new job classes. That was so cool.
I think the Four Fiends of Chaos were cool.
Yeah, the Four Fiends.
And then obviously like the big plot twist, that actually it's funny. I fucking hate time loops and time travel and stuff like that because it seems like such a cop out. But for some reason, like Final Fantasy 1 introducing it as like a central core mechanic to the story, it was a little cool, back
Especially
then.
Back
I think.
then, yeah.
Yeah, back then.
You never saw that.
Well, yeah, because like that was around. What year did Back to the Future come out?
I want to say 89, but I'm probably wrong.
Because that kind of predates like I think time travel being like a super
like a common-ish
like a super common thing. I mean, obviously I think it had to have happened before 1985 or whatever. But
it wasn't,
you know what I mean though, like,
it wasn't something you saw very often, and probably not something you really ever saw in video games. Definitely not in JRPGs at the time that I can recall.
1985 was when Back to the Future came out.
Okay, was 3 in 89? I want to say 3 was in 89.
Yeah, 3 was probably in 89.
Do you like Back to the Future 3? I don't think I do.
Is that the one with the
cowboy one?
Yeah, I wasn't a huge fan.
Yeah,
of it.
I didn't like that one.
2 is probably my favorite.
Yeah, I think 2 is the best. Yeah.
1 or 2 is my favorite. I love the Johnny Be Good part of 1.
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
3 came out in
2's
1990.
definitely the best, actually, because he's going back to the spots where like he was already there. Like that was the coolest shit ever.
Yeah, I agree.
Like he's there from the future already, and he's like back there again. Like that. Yeah, 2 is definitely the best.
Yeah, it's the time loop thing, right?
Good.
Like,
it's fucking Garland McFly.
Garland McFly. You're coining that right now.
That's my theory. Like I don't know if you I think the first podcast we did, our first Relaxed Retro Talk podcast where we were talking about the Stranger Danger Paradise or whatever. What is it called? Final Fantasy Origins Stranger of Paradise or in Paradise? Yeah. Anyways,
Strangers of Paradise.
Yeah. We were talking about that, and my whole theory was that it's gonna be. And it actually kind of came true because the main character is Garland, isn't he, or something like that? He said his last name's Garland or some shit.
It's like Jack Garland or something like that. Yeah.
So my theory was that it was going to be him from within the time loop, and then it kind of...
Yeah.
I think that's what it's going to be. Like, he's basically fighting himself in the time loop. But, yeah, the whole time loop thing, man, that was so super original back then. Like, you see time travel every now and then in video games now, and it's usually done bad. But back then, like... And they didn't make it, like, such an important part that it kind of ruined the game either.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think the best game that did time travel was by far Chrono Trigger.
I think Dragon Quest 7, but Chrono Trigger is definitely in second place.
Right there.
Dragon Quest 7's got the best time travel of all time. I gotta play. Have you ever played the Radiant Historia games?
No, I have not.
I heard those also have really good time travel. I have to check those out. I haven't played them either, but I heard that they have really good time travel as well. But yeah, next would be Final Fantasy 2.
The infamous Final Fantasy 2.
Yeah. Most people do not like Final Fantasy 2. I am one of them. Some people do really like it. I don't know why. They just hate themselves a lot, I guess. I don't know.
I have a mixed I have a love-hate relationship with 2. I think it catches a lot of shit for its battle system,
Yeah.
but I also think that other games do it and no one cares. Like, uh, perfect example. Everybody loves Skyrim, Oblivion, and the Elder Scrolls games, right? And
Right.
literally everything you do in those games counts towards a stat.
Oh, okay.
So, like, if you are if you jump a shitload on the controller, like if you like hit the jump button,
Yeah.
your acrobatics goes up.
Oh, really?
If you like hide behind a guard in a city and you're in sneak status the whole time and you like rubber band your controller over to
Yeah.
sneak behind this guard, you can get a 100 sneaking. Like,
Oh, okay.
literally, like, there's other games that do this mechanic, and I'm not saying that 2 did it well. I'm just saying that
It's not a bad
mo-
idea.
it's not a bad idea in theory, but you have to execute it properly. And I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
a lot of the trouble that people, and this is the other thing too, Final Fantasy 2 is a very breakable game.
Oh, yeah.
You can punch yourself, you can, shoot spells at yourself, you can heal yourself, and that all raises your stats.
Yeah.
But people act like that's what ruins the game.
No, I love breaking games. That's not what
And
ruins
to
it for
me, it's like difficulty options, right?
Yeah.
You can choose
Yeah,
to play on a
basically.
harder difficulty. You can choose to cheese your stats and break the game,
Yeah.
but you don't have to. And I think that's where a lot of people get the misconception that 2 is bad because of that mechanic, because you can choose to not take advantage of it
Yeah.
and play the game like a normal RPG, or you can cheese the fuck out of it, and that's fine too, but you can't complain
When it's
because
your
you have
choice. Yeah.
yeah, because you have the option.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
story-wise, you could, we could talk all day about like what people don't like about the story of 2, but I think a lot of people, when they talk about it, it's all about the battle system is
Yeah.
what people genuinely don't like about it. And again, it's your choice to play it that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
There is one thing in the battle system, though, that we'll talk about that I don't like,
What's that?
and I think this is another reason. The fact that you don't even have to equip weapons,
Oh, yeah.
and you can just destroy the whole game. Yeah, you
Yeah.
can just destroy the whole game with hand-to-hand combat.
Yeah.
And I think that is a problem.
Yeah.
but
again, you choose that, right?
Yeah, you choose that.
Yeah. For me, I hated the combat, I hated the leveling system, but this is because I grew up playing Dragon Quest where I basically need to see a level, right? Like if I don't know what fucking level I am, I don't know. I don't like that. But
Yeah.
the biggest thing for me is the dungeon design where like A, they're super mazy, B, like 90% of the doors just lead to an empty room, and when you go into the room, it like teleports you into the center of the room, so you have to walk out to the door.
Yes.
So you
And
get
you can always
so many encounters for like no
Dude,
reason.
and the encounter rate is ridiculous
Super
in that
high.
game.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so bad.
Yeah, it's really bad. And I was actually I was playing Final Fantasy IV on the PS1 just a little while ago. Like I'm replaying it on the Pixel remaster because 4 is like one of my favorites. But I fired up the PS1 version for a little bit, and even that one, like I don't remember the encounter rate being so bad, but it actually is pretty terrible. Like a lot of that era, the encounter rate's really bad.
Yeah, I think a lot of it was because like back then RPGs weren't these 40 to 50 hour experiences.
Yeah. And
So-
when they were, it was mostly just fighting.
Yeah. So like I think a lot of it was, and besides the fact that like if you look at it from a standpoint of like what JRPGs and the RPG genre is based off of, which is tabletop RPGs.
Yeah, like Dungeons and
Uh,
Dragons.
Yeah, like Dungeons and Dragons, a lot of campaigns are constant combat.
Yeah, that's true.
Like yeah, you want to get to the story bits, like you want to walk through towns and talk to the villagers and go to these like great locations, but a lot of RPGs and a lot of tabletop RPGs are about the combat.
That's
and
true.
Like building your characters, prestige classing, getting new weapons and armor and cool like amulets and
Yeah,
accessories and
yeah,
basically
upgrades and
customizing your character how you want. And so if you implement that into game design, you run into the problem of, is it empty? Is it too much? Is there like enough that the player is entertained but it's not fatigue? Like, and I think that's where a lot of
yeah,
old school video game RPGs tend to run into problems with,
trying to find that
uh,
balance.
trying to find that balance. And I like how Suikoden does theirs, because Suikoden, and this came from the director himself, Suikoden actually does it to where the longer you walk in a certain direction,
Yeah, the lower your
the
encounter rate.
lower your encounter rate is. So if you're walking straight west to a location, you're gonna get random encounters, but the amount of random encounters you get is gonna be less the longer you're traveling that distance.
Because they know
So
you're trying to
yeah,
get somewhere. You're not trying to grind at that particular point, right? You're
yeah,
trying to
and if
get
you
somewhere.
want to grind, then you just run in circles and you
Yeah,
can grind.
yeah,
But if you want to get to that next part, then it's easy to do because you just walk that straight path and boom, you're there.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I like that. My one gripe about the Suikoden games, being a guy that loves fucking grinding, is how like once you're at the level where the game kind of wants you to be, you can't really gain any EXP.
Yeah,
That's one thing I don't like, but I don't know. It's not that bad.
it kind of roadblocks you a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, and it takes really nothing away from the games. Like the games are incredible, but it's
Mhm.
just a personal pet peeve. Um, Parts that stand out in Final Fantasy 2 for me would be whatever that blue dungeon is. My friend said it's the last dungeon because that's what made me rage quit, and I've still never beaten Final Fantasy
Oh,
2.
it's probably pandemonium.
Yeah, it's everything's blue inside. That's all I
Yeah,
remember.
it's hell. It's hell.
Oh, okay.
No. Is that heaven or hell? One of them's heaven or hell,
Oh, okay.
and it's where you fight Emperor Matus,
Oh, okay. I rage quit there.
because he becomes not only God but he also becomes the devil.
Oh, really? I need to finish that one. I'm gonna stream it at some point, but
Yeah,
it's like
it's
very painful to play. I feel just because of the dungeon design, man.
yeah. There's some references to 2 and 14, by the way, that are
Are
pretty
there?
big. Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I'm okay with 2.
Oh, okay. My thing I like about it is the cheese strats. Like I love cheesing and breaking games. It's like one of my favorite things to do, especially in JRPGs. And on the PS1 and I think the Famicom version, I think they took it out starting in the GBA version. You can do what's called, they do it in Dragon Quest 3 on the NES as well, and it's a glitch. But in the Dragon Quest 3 manual, they're like they play it off as if it's like a part of the game. They're like, if you select defend on everyone but your last character and then press the B button, they'll defend and attack. Like it boosts their defense and their attack. But in Final Fantasy 2, it's different. So in Final Fantasy 2, what you can do is you, for your first 3 characters, like if you got a 4-person party, you can say attack. Say player 1 attacks the character 3, 3 attacks 2, so on and so forth, and then just hit B and back out, and that'll count towards your stats as if it actually happened.
Oh shit! Yeah,
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so that's how I've always played it. Like, so I'd break the shit out of that game, but I think you can't do it in 2. You can't do it in in Dawn of Souls and on. But for the PS1 and the Super Famic or in the Famicom version, you're able to do the cancel glitch, I think they call it.
That's awesome, actually.
Yeah, it is. It makes the game a lot more manageable because then when you're dealing with all those encounters, you can just one hit kill everything, right? You can just
Yeah.
plow through. But
Well, you can just drop your sword and do that.
Yeah, that's true too. Any other like memorable parts of 2 for you? Minwoo. He's the only
Yeah,
character I
Minwoo.
remember. I think everybody likes Minwoo, but nobody really remembers what he did.
And Furion.
Oh yeah, Furion's cool. And the weird snowmobile, which was just a raft
Yeah.
with a mast. I don't even know if it had skis on that thing, but somehow it traveled on top of the snow. That's like all I remember from that one, like story wise and stuff.
Yeah, it's not. I would say it's not overly super memorable
Yeah.
in the grand scheme of things. Like story wise. It's not anything that like broke barriers or anything.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It was definitely the first one that tried to have like a bit of a story, like tried to
Yeah.
build the world and stuff. Like there's definitely like an attempt at world building there at least. One cool, I guess, fact about Final Fantasy 2 though is you can as long as you get strong enough, you can pretty much go almost anywhere in the world because the way the world's connected is like you can go all the way down the bottom and end up in the north or something,
Mm-hmm.
and you're not supposed to be able to get there till like the end of the game. So that's a cool thing about it. But other than that, 2 didn't have like a whole lot going for it. Final Fantasy 3. Now, did you play a lot of Final Fantasy 3, and which versions did you play of that one?
So I didn't play a super amount of 3. But I did play the DS version, which got ported to Steam. That's
Oh,
the
okay.
version I actually played was the Steam version. Um, I also played. Wasn't there a redone version on PlayStation 1?
I
Or
think
maybe
on
I'm wrong.
PSP. I think
Maybe it was
I might
PSP.
be
There
wrong, but I
was-
think the DS version ish ended up on PSP. Like they changed some things
Okay.
about it.
Well, regardless, Steam's the one I put the most amount of time in. And it wasn't bad. I will say that it introduced one of my favorite mechanics in the entire series, which was summons. So
Yeah, right. I forgot that was the first one is summoning.
yeah,
And really, if you think about it, Final Fantasy is really the only series that really like hammers down on the summoning. Like they weren't super like OP in Final Fantasy 3, but as a series, you don't really see that in any other JRPG series. Hey, like where like like there's always a summoner. You know what I mean? And there's these iconic summons that show up across the series. You don't really see that in any other JRPG.
well, and Final Fantasy I think is one of the few series that made a summoner a main character.
Yeah, no shit.
So yeah,
Yeah, Final
with
Fantasy.
Yuna and 10.
Final Fantasy really does a good job of showing taking new things, making them their strengths, and like kind of like promoting their strengths. They're really good. They're really good for that. For Final Fantasy 3, I didn't get very far in it. I played the Famicom version. I actually own the Famicom version, and I like it because it started doing like the job class thing. There's a big thing like a big argument. Who started job classes? Was it Dragon Quest? Was it Final Fantasy 3? Was it Dragon Quest 3? Was it Final Fantasy 3? They both came out around the same time. I think Dragon Quest 3 was a little earlier, but really, if you want to argue that, it's Dungeons and Dragons. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like it was bound to happen. I think. But Final Fantasy 3, my biggest gripe with the whole game, and the main reason I have not finished it, I ended up quitting, was they're
Crystal
like,
Tower.
no, I didn't even get that far.
Oh, okay.
But my friends told me how fucking dreadful that place is.
Yeah, it's bad.
But the fact that it's like, and keep in mind, I had played Dragon Quest 3 first, right? Where you pick your the way Dragon Quest 3 works is like Final Fantasy 1. Like you pick your characters all have like a job class, but then once you get to like the halfway point in the game, they can change to a second job class, right? And they keep all the abilities from their first one. So I went in with the whole belief that you should be able to beat the game with whatever job classes, right? Because that's how Final Fantasy 1 was, that's how Dragon Quest 3 was. But in Final Fantasy 3, there's the issue of like where the game basically forces you to use specific job classes at specific points in the game.
Yeah.
And it's like, why are you telling me I have all these options when as soon as I get a job class, everybody's gonna fucking be that job class? Like that.
Yeah, like the Onion Knight.
Yeah, like that stuff really pissed me off. Like there's a part where I can't remember if it's a Dark Knight or a Mystical Knight or something like that. You have to be, and then there's a couple parts in that game where you have to be a specific job class or you're not gonna be able to beat that dungeon or get through that.
I think there's one spot where you have to be a dragoon, if I remember right.
Yes. And it's like, why? Like, and so like your whole party's like dragoons, and then the other part is that they punish you for changing job classes. You have like there's like It's like some weird ass like cooldown thing. Like you have to have fought. I can't remember. I think you have to fight like 15 battles as that job class before it'll allow you to change classes again. It's like, dude, what the fuck? Give me all these options, and then you just like punish me for having them. That was my biggest gripe with 3. I need to finish it. I need to play a lot more of it than what I had played, because I heard it is like pretty cool, like the story and the concept and everything. But
it's brutal though.
Yeah, I believe it. I'll be playing the Pixel Remaster when I play it. So Pixel Remasters have been quite easy from what I understand compared to the originals.
So the problem with 3 is that Crystal Tower, once you enter the Crystal Tower, if I remember correctly, you cannot save.
Yeah, that's what my friend was saying, and it's fucking long.
If you get to the top of Crystal Tower and you die to Cloud of Darkness,
you start at the bottom.
It's over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fucked.
Like, yeah. It's like there's another game that does that. It's funny that we were talking about D&D, because if I remember right, there is a campaign called the Tower of Gygax, and it's actually like this supposedly unbeatable tower, and if you are defeated, it's over. Like, that campaign's done.
Oh, really?
So it kind of reminds me of that a little bit.
I wonder if that's what inspired the Crystal Tower.
I don't know, because I don't know when Tower of Gygax actually came out. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, that game was brutal. I just remember the furthest I got was, spoiler alert, when you leave the continent in the sky or whatever, and then you start hitting those job class walls, and that I was like, fuck, I do not want to be doing this. Like, I love Dragoons and all, but do I really want my whole party to be Dragoons and not be able to change for like 15 battles? Apparently Pixel Remaster got rid of that whole like weird cooldown punishment thing. Got rid of that apparently. So, but other than that, like the biggest takeaways from Final Fantasy 3 was it actually had kind of a story. The job class system kind of got its start there, really, in the Final Fantasy series, and like you said, summoners first existed, and summoners are like a staple of the franchise now, like a huge staple.
Oh yeah, and the thing is, like, every game kind of sets the bar for summons to be like, every time summoning is featured prominently, they go like above and beyond. Like we're talking like, okay, Final Fantasy 7 with like Knights of the Round, like how fucking badass is that, right?
Yeah.
And Final Fantasy 6 was all about espers and summons.
Right,
and
the story was all around it.
Exactly. So, like, every time they introduce summoning as, like, a main mechanic, it's always, like, this big spectacle. Like, the Guardian Forces in 8 were a big part of the story.
Yeah.
Right? Like, they're the whole reason why they forget shit, you know? Yeah. Like, and then, like, and we'll get to that when we talk about Final Fantasy 8, because that's one of my big gripes, too, about people that talk about that story. But regardless, like, my point is like, Final Fantasy has always, like you said earlier, taken that one mechanic and hammered away at it, but has basically made it impossible for anybody to, like, top them, because every time a game comes out, they'll just top it again. Like, look at 16. 16 is going to feature summons.
Yeah, the summons.
Prominently again, and they look fucking amazing.
Even, like, people shit on 15 all the time. When I fucking first, that Titan, when you meet Titan in that, like, holy shit, dude. I was like, the summons in 15 are fucking the best. Like,
and they're actually gods, too.
Yes, that is how summons should be, I think, right? The only shitty thing is, like, the requirements in order to summon them is, like, fucking impossible. That was stupid. Yeah. But although they're so powerful that that you can't have them just cost, like, 30 MP to fucking level this, you know what I mean? Level the screen.
Did you ever fight Adamantoise?
Yes,
the big ass turtle, the big ass turtle rock.
Yeah.
Did you ever summon Titan during that fight?
No, I never.
Titan comes up and punches that motherfucker in the face.
No way.
Yeah, if you summon Titan during that fight, he'll walk up and just punch the fucking turtle in the face.
That's
It's the
fucking
greatest
hilarious.
thing
I'm gonna
ever.
have to
It's the
look that up
greatest.
on YouTube.
Oh,
After.
dude, it's the greatest thing ever.
That's fucking funny, dude.
But
I think I've only ever
like,
summoned Ramu and Leviathan. Those are the only ones I've ever actually successfully summoned in that game.
oh yeah, you can't. I don't think you can summon Shiva, but it's like very rare. You can't summon Bahamut, and that I think is what ruined a lot of it for me for the summoning system. Is that you get Bahamut, but you can never summon him.
Bahamut was cool as shit in that game too.
Yeah, Bahamut was cool as fuck.
Well, yeah, let's stick to 3 because we'll get to 15 at some point. But yeah, 3. Other things, starting even in Final Fantasy 1 is you get like the iconic designs of the job classes too, right? Like you've got the black mage, the white mage. They have an iconic design, and then in Final Fantasy 3, the summoner has that horn, right? And you don't really see that come back until Final Fantasy Tactics, and then again in Final Fantasy 9, where Ico has a horn, right? And Garnet would have had one too, but they cut it off or whatever. And it's stuff like that they carry through the series when they do like their throwbacks to the classics. Even in Final Fantasy 9, Garnet, when she's escaping, she's dressed in a white mage robe or whatever, right? When she's trying to escape.
And 14 actually has the summoner's job gear has a horn on it.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. But yeah, other than that, 3 definitely added a bunch of good stuff to the series, but they still never really knocked it out of the park until I feel Final Fantasy 4, where they absolutely fucking nailed it with the story, nailed it with the world building. Went back to I guess 3 was also, you had like the crystals and stuff, but that's one thing I love about the Final Fantasy games is the whole crystal story, and I feel like you're missing a part of what Final Fantasy is if you don't have the whole crystal story. But Final Fantasy 4 nailed it with the crystal story, brought the 4 fiends back. Like you've got, oh man, Final Fantasy 4 is so good. And then on top of that, that's really where the summoner took its roots, because Final Fantasy 3, the summoner was there. The summoner was kind of cool, but really it was basically just magic, right? It was no different than magic. And then Final Fantasy 4 comes around, and you could have had Rydia basically be this shitty, basically just a mage that casts summons that do magic-like stuff. But then you've got, and she is at the start when she's a little kid, right? She's got like Choco Kick or some stupid shit.
Yeah.
And then she comes back as an adult and she's summoning these fucking gargantuan like gods. And then when you fight Bahamut, you got Bahamut, Leviathan, like it's just like that really cemented the summoner as like an iconic thing. I feel Final Fantasy.
Well,
4.
and 4 did a really good job with tying the summons into the story too, because if you remember with Rydia's mother, actually, she summoned the Mist Dragon.
Yep.
And then when the Mist Dragon was defeated, she died.
What killed
her? And like, it almost makes you wonder if if Rydia summoned something and it was destroyed, which could be another reason why. And this probably, I don't know if this was in their mind when they did it, but if you think about it, summons up until I believe Final Fantasy 10 actually was the first time we could control summons.
Right.
Summons had always been one attack and done.
Yeah.
So I wonder if you could say that the developers were like, okay, well, Rydia can't die from her summons being defeated if
they just peace out.
So
yeah.
I wonder if that's if that would be like a lore tie-in that they could use to say, well, that's why it's only one and done. Yeah. But I think that's a cool touch.
Yeah, they could have done something like that. They could have done something like that with 10, where like Yuna takes damage if the summon dies. Like she doesn't die, but if the summon dies, that would have been cool if she took damage, kind of thing. Because then you'd manage your summons a little better than just fucking shitting them out and doing the maximum damage and just basically using them as a commodity.
as a meat shield.
Yeah. But yeah, that was so cool. Like and then you get to go to like the realm of the summons, like where the summons live and shit. Like that stuff was so cool in 4. Obviously the lunar whale. I mean, who the fuck thought Final Fantasy was going to space, especially in like one of the high fantasy games, not in like the later. Like I could have seen even like Final Fantasy 6, I could have seen them maybe like going to like space a little bit like they do in 7. 8 obviously was going to go to space, right? Well, not obviously was going to go to space, but like it would have been like an easier, made sense, more kind of thing to do it in 8 than any of the others. But for 4 to do it, like that's fucking so cool to me too. Even though that to me is the weakest part of the game is once you get to the moon, because the encounter rate just jacks the fuck up and everything's stupid hard. Like I don't know how which versions of 4 did you play?
I played the original Final Fantasy 2 version.
Okay, yeah.
I also played the remake on Steam.
Okay.
That was the DS remake.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then that's it.
Okay, so I played a bit of the Super Nintendo one. Like I have it, Final Fantasy 2 or whatever. But I didn't beat it until the PS1 version, which is still my favorite version, although Pixel Remasters coming close to beating that one out. And then I played a tiny bit of that DS one, but I don't really like it. Like I want to like it because it's like one of my favorite Final Fantasy games, but I don't know what it is about it. I don't like those like the graphics, I guess, is what it is. Maybe
the big-headed sprites really throw me off.
Yeah. Like,
and that's kind of what's throwing me off with the new Pokemon remakes too. So I think there's just a correlation between like big head, tiny body sprites that I really just don't like. I feel like proportions would be much better for games like that.
Yeah, I feel like because even in a way, Final Fantasy VII did that, but their torsos were better. The ratio was a bit better, I think. Like if they would have done. If they would have just made their fucking head smaller, man, that's all they would have had to have done in the thing. And they also, I never, like I said, I never got very far in the DS version, but they also juiced the fucking difficulty up in that version. Like, holy shit, that game's hard.
And added voice acting.
Yeah, the voice acting's super cool. Like the cutscenes, super fucking cool in that. That's one thing I really do want to push myself to get through it because I do want to experience all the cutscenes and stuff. But I played a bit of that one, and then I played all the way through the PSP one as well as the After Years, the PSP one. And I heard the After Years is in the Steam version. Is that correct? Or not?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure about that one.
Oh, okay. But anyways, to me
there is a Steam version of the After Years.
Oh, so maybe you have to get it separately and then.
Yeah, well, there's not a pixel remaster of After Years. There's just a port of After Years on Steam.
Yeah. And I think it's like the 3D one, right? Like it's the DS graphics looking version?
No, I think
it's the PSP looking one?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's the PSP port. Yeah.
But yeah, the PSP one, mechanically, I mentioned a little earlier, definitely the best version of the game mechanically. They added, at least it seemed like they added, like if you were at a decent level, they would drop the shit out of the encounter rate, so you're not running into enemies that you don't need to be fighting kind of thing, even though I was just fucking complaining about that with Suikoden. But I liked it in Final Fantasy IV because I played it so many times.
Yeah.
And then the After Years, God, it's really hard to like the After Years. Like there's some things that are so fucking good in the After Years, and then some things that are so fucking terrible. Like
what they did with Palom and Porum.
Yeah, actually I didn't mind them because I actually did not like Palom and Porum in the first game, and so I kind of liked them a little bit more in the After Years. Yeah, but
let's also not forget that 4, and we haven't touched on this yet, but 4 is the introduction of the ATB system by Hiroyuki Ito.
Yes. I forgot about that. Yeah. I actually don't like the ATB system because here's the thing. I like what it does, but I don't like it, if that makes any sense. Because I like the fact that if this character has more agility by a lot than this boss or monster or other character, that he can actually go 2 times before that guy can go once. I like that. Yeah. I like that. And they do that in like Final Fantasy X. but I like it turn-based because I hate fucking having to wait, and at the same time, I hate having to be in a hurry when I'm trying to select shit. So, it's not that I hate the ATB, but those are the things I don't like about it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's cool. It's a cool addition because it kind of makes battles a little bit more real time, right? Instead of choosing all your shit and then everybody just goes when they go.
Yeah. Ito actually has created a lot of great systems over the years, so and I'm really glad that they've kept him on to this day. Actually, he still works for Square Enix.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he actually just came out with that new what is it? Dungeon. The fuck is it called? It's that new like strictly just turn-based RPG. Like, it's hard to explain what it is, but it's just literally almost like Dungeon Encounters is what it's called.
Oh, okay. I haven't heard of that one.
Yeah, that literally just released this year.
Okay, I'm gonna have to check that out.
He also created the system for Tactics.
Oh, okay.
And 12.
Yeah, Tactics.
And 9, I think.
Well, 9 was ATB, wasn't it? Just with the trans system and stuff.
Yeah, but it also had where your weapons give you abilities.
Right, I love that. A lot of people don't, and I understand why, but I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, I do like that, to be honest.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that I actually really liked in Remake, oddly enough.
Yeah?
Yeah, that's one of the few things that I liked in Final Fantasy VII Remake.
It just gives you an incentive to try new things. That's why I like it.
Well, it makes weapons viable still,
and that too.
Past their use.
Yes, that too, yeah.
Because you want to find these weapons to get their abilities.
Yeah, even if it's like a way weaker weapon, you want to find the weapon, you want to use it so you can learn the abilities. Yeah, I really like that system. But yeah, Final Fantasy IV, it added brought the Dark Knight back, which you never really see again until remakes of some of the other games. And then I don't know, just the story was so good, especially compared to 1 through 3. Like, I prefer the story of 4 over 5 and 6 and 7 and 8. Like, I love Final Fantasy IV's story, and considering it's a fucking Super Nintendo game, and an early Super Nintendo game, to the point where when I played it for the first time, I was like, the fuck is this? This looks like a Nintendo game.
Well, and what's crazy is, to Western audiences, we jumped from 1 to 4.
Yeah, absolutely.
But to us, it was 2. We'd never really even heard of 2 and 3.
Yeah.
Like, over here, and then, like, you see the quality of 1, and you're like, okay, for an NES game, that's really good quality. It's a really good quality game. Then you get to the Super Nintendo, and you see Final Fantasy IV, and you're like, holy shit, like, this company really had a glow up, you know?
Oh, yeah. But
me, then you go back, yeah.
To me, it was the opposite, because to me, Final Fantasy like 4 on the Super NES, like I think I had already played a little bit of Final Fantasy 6. I had played like Super Mario World, right? And to me, Final Fantasy 4's graphics on the Super NES weren't at that level of like good, like, so to me it was like this they could have, to me I was like, they could have done this on the NES, because I was also that guy that got the NES really late. So I was seeing games like fucking Power Blade and like Ninja Gaiden 3 where they had like these like cutscenes and stuff, right? And
they'd had the years to behind it.
Yeah. And so I was disappointed in its graphics back then, but now it's like I love the design of the Super NES ones, to the point where that's another reason why I don't like the PSP ones, is because they redid all the sprites completely different. And the Pixel Remaster, for the most part, is Pixel Remaster is probably my second favorite, but the PS1 uses the exact same sprites as the Super NES version, and to me those are the best looking ones. Pixel Remaster's close, but Cecil looks like Batman when he's like, I can't remember if it's when he's facing the camera or looking away. Yeah. He looks like Batman, and I don't really like that. Kane, his armor is all one color, whereas in the Super NES and the PS1 version, it was like I think it was like a greenish blue, and then it got like purple as it came into the face. Like, I don't know why were the original ones the best ones? Like, you know what I mean? You'd think.
Careful, man. That's boomer talk.
I know, but they were the best ones. They had the most, strangely enough, they had the most detail that wasn't like ridiculous. Like, I don't like the way Cecil's armor looks in the GBA one or the PSP one, where it looks like he's got like a bunch of like red eyes and shit everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like that look. Really, it doesn't really look like a Dark Knight to me. Maybe.
I feel you, because it's like sometimes when they try, it was like our conversation earlier, when they try to remaster it, sometimes they lose that original charm, and sometimes it just doesn't work well.
Yeah, absolutely. And then yeah, like with Kane, where he's got like he's got like a big beak hanging over. I didn't like that at all.
Yeah.
That's really what kills the PSP version, is how derpy Kane looks, and Kane's like the baddest motherfucker in the whole game.
Yeah.
But
Now, memorable moments though. This is a lot of them. But what's your favorite Final Fantasy IV moment?
My favorite? Oh,
mine's gonna be really cliche, but I have a reason.
Can I include the after years though, or just Final Fantasy IV?
Just straight Final Fantasy IV.
Straight Final Fantasy IV. It's got to be when the lunar whale's coming out of the water. That's to me like, cause you just like, they're talking about
Free Willy.
Yeah, no. No, it's because they're like talking about it. They're like, there's this ship that can travel to the moon, right? And they're talking about it for quite a bit, and then all of a sudden, like, you finally like do the shit you need to do, and you can see like the water fucking like boiling, and then all of a sudden you see this big fucking airship come up, and you're like, holy shit! And it doesn't look like any airship you've seen until this point, right? Like, oh yeah. Man! And then when you get inside it, it's all like fucking like futuristic and shit. Oh man, yeah, that to me is probably the best part.
Have I taken you on a ride in the lunar whale in 14?
Yeah.
Endwalker, you're gonna love, because it's gonna be all Final Fantasy IV references.
Yeah, that's what you're saying, and they like go to the moon. And then
yeah, they go to the moon and everything. Also, there's a special cameo in Shadowbringers, the post patches, that you're gonna love too. But we'll get there.
Okay, what's your favorite or most memorable moment in Final Fantasy?
So I think, and this is gonna be cliche as fuck, my most memorable and favorite moment is when he becomes a paladin.
Yeah, that's up there.
And the reason for that is because I really like stories where they make somebody fight, maybe not necessarily physically fight, but they fight their inner demons.
Mm-hmm. Same.
And so, like, for Cecil to go through that in kind of a rite of passage to kind of cast off his demons and say, I'm no longer this Dark Knight, I'm no longer this person. What I fought for before is no longer who I am, because I realize that I'm taking orders that I don't want to follow.
Yeah.
But I'm doing it because I feel like I'm serving my country. But sometimes serving my country and doing what's right are on two different sides of the spectrum.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so when he strikes down his Dark Knight side and takes over as a paladin, it's kind of like that I won against the thing that I never thought I'd be able to defeat, and that's himself.
Yeah.
And so, like, it's kind of, yeah, it's kind of like, you know, in real life, it's a real life concept. Like, you know, you might do something that it might be what you think is right
at the time,
and it's not, and then you have to live with that the rest of your life. And sometimes, you know, you win that battle, and you're like, you know, I can overcome this, I can do good in the world, I can make it right. Or sometimes you lose it, and you are just obsessed with the fact that you're a failure, or that you failed, or, you know. And so those kind of moments in stories where it's a fantasy setting but has very real emotions and feelings are some of my favorite stories in video games.
Yeah, same here.
And it's a story that's not afraid to have stakes either.
Yeah, Final Fantasy IV is great for that. It's funny because my friend Mike, aka DG, the guy that I usually hosts Relaxed Retro Talk with me, he's playing through Final Fantasy IV for the first time, and I am like just fucking loving it, right? And he's like going through like all these things for the first time, and he's like, holy shit, like he didn't realize, like, his first Final Fantasy, like a lot of people's was Final Fantasy 7, right? And it's funny because he got to the part, and I'm making sure not to drop spoilers for him, right, while he's playing it. And he got to the part where Palom and Porom turned to stone, and he's like, holy shit, they just killed fucking children. And I was like, yeah. So, and I'm like, so keep in mind that I played Final Fantasy 7 after I played Final Fantasy 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, and 10, right? So I have never gotten the shock value from Aerith dying, right? Because to me, to this day, and we'll get to that, the worst, the most felt death, other than if you count Vivi's death, because his death happens at the very end of 9. It's the saddest fucking death in the series, in my opinion. But but Galif's death in Final Fantasy V, to me, is the most iconic death in the Final Fantasy series.
Is that the one where they just drop a giant fucking rock on him?
No, what? I don't think so. I think he gets like force electrocuted to death by X Death.
Oh yeah.
Or that chick kills him on the beach or something. Like, no, I think it's the X Death fight. But
okay.
So to him seeing this, he's like, holy shit, and he's like realizing, like, okay, like, this is like a common thing that happens in these games, is like characters do die, and I just can't wait till he sees like fucking like Yang, like everybody just starts dying, but they all come back in the end in Final Fantasy IV, which is kind of nice because of the sequel. But if there never was a sequel, I would have almost preferred some of them to stay dead just for that shock value, right?
Yeah, I agree, because I'm not a big fan of like Deus Ex Machina in games. Like, I would rather a character stay dead.
Yeah.
You know,
they
like,
kind of tease
if they want to be like if they want to be like an inspiration from the grave, I'm cool with that. Like, you know, like that fucking Gohan and Goku father-son Kamehameha wave kind of thing, you know? But it's just, I don't know, sometimes I feel like designers and developers are too afraid to knock somebody off for the shock value.
Yeah.
Like, some people are, like, they're afraid that because you like this character, it's going to piss you off, you're going to give it negative reviews. But to me, sometimes that's what gets you those positive reviews. That's what gets you invested in those characters, because people will always wonder, what if they had never died?
Yeah.
What if that character, you know, what adversity is the party overcoming if that character never dies?
Yeah. And
you know, and it's like, I like when developers have the balls to say, no, we're killing this character, and that's what we're doing, and that's just how it has to be.
Yeah, I agree. I also, one thing about Final Fantasy IV that I don't like is the fact that, like, they tease you quite a bit. Like when that, what is it, like, it's like a whirlpool. I think Leviathan shows up, and there's a whirlpool, and Leviathan kills, Yang, he kills Edward. Like, you think they're all dead for a split second there, and then they start showing up. That, like, I don't like that aspect where they do keep, like, bringing the characters back but making you think they're dead and they're not dead.
Mm-hmm.
That happens, like, quite a few times in 4. But to me, like, when they leave them dead, not only does that trigger a lot of growth in the remaining characters, like a lot of fucking growth, but it also helps relate to real life. Like, when you lose someone in real life, those are the same thoughts you have. Like, what if that person didn't pass away? Like, what would my life be like today if that person was still here, right? Like, it's just stuff like that it's crazy, like, that a video game can portray those feelings and thoughts just like real life.
Well, and it's a testament to the writing of those characters too, because some games, I feel like, try to give you the sense of loss without killing anybody important.
Yeah.
And the problem with that is that if you kill somebody, like, random, like an NPC or something right in front of me, and I'm like,
you feel bad for them.
Yeah, you feel bad for them, but you don't get that sense of, like,
oh my god.
Yeah, you don't get, it's not like a super invested emotional connection to that character, so you don't really care. It's like, oh, that sucks, but
you move on from it quite quickly.
Yeah, that NPC is going to be very forgotten. in the grand scheme of things. Like you're not gonna really give a shit for the
Yeah.
most part.
Yeah. You're gonna acknowledge the effect it had on the world more so than that NPC, and then you're gonna just
Yeah.
kind of move on, basically.
Well, and I think the one time I can say that they, and it actually was in 4 that they pulled it off well, was the Mist Dragon.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
like you didn't know Rydia's mother,
yeah. You didn't even know you were killing her, basically.
but you felt super bad about it when you did it. Like,
Yeah. And then like you burn the whole village. That's not necessarily fully your fault, but it kind of is.
yeah, that's
right?
the other thing. Like 4 just did not give a shit. Like
Yeah, right
it
at the
walked into the
hop.
party. Yeah, it
Yeah.
walked into the party and was like, "Fuck," whipped its dick out.
Yeah,
Like you know what I
absolutely.
mean? Like,
Yeah, that's another thing my friend's noticing is like, he's like, wow, it really grabs you by the balls and just doesn't let go like that game. You just keep going.
well, and from the very beginning, like, Cecil's like, what are we doing? Like, what did I just do? Or,
Yeah.
you know, from the very onset is like, I have to go here and do this because the king told me to, but is it what I really want to do?
Yeah,
Like
the
that big
very
speech.
opening scene when they're
Yeah.
coming back from Mysidia.
Yeah, when they have that big speech with him and Rosa,
Yeah,
and he's like, I don't know if I did the right thing, or
yeah.
why would my king tell me to do this?
Why would he lead me wrong, right?
Yeah.
And then burns the village, kills the little girl's mom, and he's like, okay, no, this is too much. And then the best part is the dialogue from Kane, and he's like, we gotta kill the girl. It's like, what? You know? It's like, Kane's like, well, we can't just leave her here. Like,
Well, we got room for one more terrible thing before we turn this new leaf over.
yeah, it's like, what? You want what? And I just remember my buddy's face because it's been so long since I played it for the first time, right? And you never experience a game the same way as you did the first time.
Oh yeah, no.
And he thought he was gonna have to kill this girl because right after Kane says that, you're in a battle with this little girl and you're gonna kill her. And then it's like when I play now, I never attack, but he's like, do I have to attack her? Like, it's just like that. Oh, 4 is so good. But
It really is.
But anyways, yeah, like it just added so much. And I do like each character having their own class too. I feel like that usually adds more character depth to the character when they're their own class, especially in a high fantasy setting, because that's a part of who they are. Like that job class is a part of who they are and their like personality and lifestyle and stuff, you know? But if you include After Years, my favorite part is Kane's story. Like, have you played the After Years? Because I don't want to ruin anything if you haven't.
I haven't finished it, but I've played it.
Okay, so I'm just going to say Kane's story is the only reason you should play it, because the game as a whole isn't that great. Mainly because you get tossed in a lot of boss fights as characters that you haven't even played as yet. So you're just stuck at that level. You're stuck in this fucking boss fight with this character you have not even touched before. And that happens like maybe 6 or more times in that game. And it's very frustrating. And these boss fights are incredibly difficult. Like, it's not like an entry-level boss fight either. But so you're fighting these, and you're constantly jumping from character to character. I don't like that part either. But Kane's story alone is so good.
Well, and I think too, like that's one of my probably my only besides the weak like last eighth of the story of 4. I think probably the lack of Kane in 4 was probably
Yeah, because he dips in and then is gone so much, right? And then at the very end of Final Fantasy IV, which is another one of my favorite parts, is everybody's happy, everybody goes back to their town, and a lot of this stuff I talk about. My top 10 Final Fantasy characters video. It'll be going up in December, and I talk about this a lot, like how all the different characters, like how you mentioned your favorite part in 4 was Cecil, the whole Paladin showdown thing. I talk about all that a lot in that, but Kane at the end of Final Fantasy IV, all the characters go back to their countries and they're like, We did it, boys. We fucking sent the evil pack in. We're gonna protect the world. We're gonna make it. We're gonna continue to make it a better place. We're gonna celebrate, and we're gonna live the rest of our lives in peace, happily. And Kane, and then I can't remember if it's after the credits or right before the credits. The camera like pans over, and Kane is on Mount Ordeals, and he's got his helmet off, and you can see his like blonde hair flapping in the wind, and he's like, I can't return. I can't show my face to Cecil and Rosa until I've dealt with this shit. And he's like embarrassed that his jealousy, his inner demons are what allowed the enemy to control him and basically fuck up almost the fucking whole world, right? Because he wasn't able to fucking conquer his inner demons. And all of Final Fantasy for the after years, his whole story is him wanting to conquer, failing to conquer, and then coming to terms with the fact that he wasn't able to conquer his demons, but that they're a part of him just as much as anything else, and that he needs to learn to live with that fact. And it's just so fucking good. Like,
God, you are gonna love Heaven's Ward.
I hope so. Is it?
You're gonna love it.
Is it part of the welfare package?
Yes.
Okay.
So, you're playing as Lancer, right?
Yeah, Dragoon now, actually.
Yeah. So, Dragoon, have you met Estinian yet?
Yeah, I've met him.
You are going to love Estinian.
He's got like a similar kind of a...
He's the Kane Highwind of 14.
Okay. He's basically... What I've got from him so far is like Dark Knight Cecil vibes from like just what I've seen so far. But yeah.
Trust me.
But anyway,
you're going to love Estinian by the end of Heaven's Ward.
I'm looking forward to it. But
yeah.
But anyways, like Kane...
He's my second favorite character in the game, just so you know.
Okay. But like, yeah, that for me, the part where Kane in the after years comes to terms with the fact that he can't... Can I spoil a little bit for you? Like, are you...
I don't care.
Okay. So he's on Mount Ordeals, right? That's where Cecil faced off against his Dark Knight. Well, Kane's been training on Mount Ordeals for years, and he shows up in the after years not as a dragoon, but as like this random guy wearing like a not like a turban, but like a scarf around his head and his neck kind of thing. And you don't know it's Kane until like halfway through the game, but you have your suspicions, and he's helping Cecil's son because his son is going through some shit. And then all of a sudden Kane does show up though, and Kane's like fucking killing people, and he's kidnapping Rosa, and he's like burning towns and stuff. And anyways, you find out that Kane did the same thing Cecil did. He went into that mirror chamber, but he failed, whereas Cecil succeeded in not attacking. Remember, Cecil didn't attack. Kane wasn't there for that, right? So Kane does the same thing. He tries fighting his dark side, and his dark side like almost kills him. And his dark side, not only does he escape the mirror, he leaves Mount Ordeals and lives out his life as Kane and starts killing motherfuckers, right? Because he's the dark side of Kane. And so Kane, the real Kane, is basically like a hermit who just lives on Mount Ordeals and is like basically ashamed to exist because
that is pretty badass.
Yeah, it's so good. And then when he meets Cecil's son, like he saves Cecil's son from dying. He doesn't know it was Cecil's son at the time. And then he ends up him and Cecil's son Theodore, they go back to Baron, where now Cecil is under a mind fuck like how Kane was in 4. And they go there, but Dark Kane is in there, and he's killing people inside Baron, and he finally fights his dark side, but he fights him with his new friends, right? And he beats him up, and then the dark Kane is like whatever, finish me, and he's like, no, I realize now that's not how we do this, and he basically like he's like, you're a part of me, just like anything else is, and he absorbs him, and then he becomes like a holy dragoon and stuff. Like,
God, you are gonna love Astinian. God damn it, dude,
oh,
you're gonna
that,
love him.
yeah, but yeah,
Not
that's,
not that doesn't like I'm not saying like that's not happening,
oh, okay,
but trust me, if you love Kane, you're gonna love Astinian.
okay. But yeah, that's, oh man, that's the best part of the After Years for sure, is like Kane's story. And despite all the bullshit in that game, I still think it's worth it to play, even like just because of that part alone. But yeah, other than that, I guess it's time to talk about Final Fantasy V. Do you how you said, did you finish 5 or you got?
I never finished 5, but I know the gist of it.
Okay, I mean, there's not a lot of spoilers in 5 because five's story isn't, to me, isn't like the main part of it. Like, it's there, there's some decent stuff.
Yeah,
But
it's the job system.
yeah, it's the job system, it's the humor, it's the fun. Like, 5 is the funnest in the series. And it takes, like, the whole, up until this point, I'm always complaining about how the encounter rate's too high. In Final Fantasy V, I could fight all day because you want all that AP, so because you're basically like fully customizing your characters based on
Hmm.
what you choose for job classes and abilities and stuff. I absolutely love Final Fantasy V.
Well, and I think 5 was the first one that took the job system and actually made it viable. Because 3's was okay, but like you said earlier, it definitely had its flaws, and
Yeah,
and 5 kind of took that extra step in making the job system better. Which
absolutely.
I think we see a lot of what 5 did with its job system in future entries. So
Yeah, especially tactics. To me,
yeah,
to me, Final Fantasy V hit a home run, and then Final Fantasy Tactics was like just like grand slamming it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it took everything that 5 did and even improved upon that. And
yeah,
to me, I think that still might be the best job class system ever. Dragon Quest Nines is really good, but I think Final Fantasy Tactics is still the best as far as
I
like
agree.
a job class system, and the customization you can do for your characters
Hmm.
with it. Another thing 5 did well again was keeping the summons like really strong, because I felt in I want to say 7, up until you get like those high tier summons, the summons felt like magic again to me in 7. But in 5, you do have some shit ones. You have like Ifrit, you have Shiva. I liked Ifrit and Shiva, nothing against them at all, but they were kind of shit in those games. You could have cast Blizzara and had the exact same effect, kind of thing. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? Um, I fucking can't remember if Odin was in 5. I don't think so. I think 6 was the first. Well, he might have been in 3. I don't remember, but 6 he was definitely in, and he was really fucking cool in 6 because he had his own like side quest.
hmm
But I don't know, like Bahamut in 5 was so cool, like so OP. You could, if you, the more time you spent playing 5, the more you enjoyed it because of how much customization you could do, how OP you could build your characters. Like, you could just fuck around. Like, when I beat it, it's kind of like a theme on my stream is like, I love breaking JRPGs. So when I beat X-Death, I think I killed him in 2 turns, maybe 1 turn actually, because I had my red mage learn dual cast, which you get when you max out your red mage.
hmm
It takes for fucking ever, but if you just grind on magic pots, it's not that bad. And then you learn dual cast. Well, the way Final Fantasy V works is you can then, once you've learned an ability, you can jump to another job class and carry some of those abilities over, whichever ones you want, right? So what I would do is I would take the red mage. I would max out the red mage, so he's got dual cast. Turn him into a summoner. Get Bahamut, and then turn the rest of my party into mimes. And then I would dual cast Bahamut and then just hit mimic, mimic, mimic. So I in one turn, and I'm counting a turn as every character gets to go once. In one turn, I'm summoning Bahamut like 8 times, and just fucking, and Bahamut's doing 9999 damage. So it's like I just like love destroying the games like that, and I love what you can do with 5 in that way.
That's fucking awesome.
Yeah, it's like the more time you spend fucking around in 5, the more you're gonna enjoy it. And then there are plot twists in the story, but there's nothing super groundbreaking.
Well, and the thing is, the funny part about 5 is it's kind of a giant meme, right? Like,
yeah, pretty much.
Even from the beginning, like when the Chocobo shows up, it's kind of like this funny adventure kind of thing with a serious undertone. Like, yeah, Xdeath is trying to just turn everything into nothingness, but at the same time, like Xdeath is like this, supposed to be like this mindless thing. Like all he's
a twig
created to do, all he's created to do is fill the void, right?
Create
or create the void, right?
Yeah, make everything void, basically.
But then there's a part where he becomes a fucking splinter in somebody's finger.
Yeah, I think
he jumps out of the he jumps out of the splinter and fucking is there, and you're like, what the fuck? And he's like, yeah, it was a splinter, you know? Like, it's funny shit.
It's the best.
It's like, the whole game is a fucking meme. But it's a meme that you enjoy because it's actually, like, really funny.
Really funny, yeah. And it's like, it's super fun. Like, super fun, super hilarious. There's enough story to keep you going. Like, it's not even that there's enough story to keep you going. There's enough story so you know where to go next. Like, I wouldn't even say the story is what keeps me wanting to play it at all, because it's not that good, the story. But it gives you a purpose to, like, where I should be going next, right? Like
it's like Xdeath is just like Final Fantasy V's version of Golbez, you know?
Yeah, he's literally Golbez, but he's a tree instead of like.
Yeah, he's Golbez, but he's light blue instead of dark blue.
Yeah, pretty much. And he got
a palette swap.
The other like part of his design, I can't remember if he's got like 2 little spikes or if it's got like, it almost looks like that little fucking, like, you know when you see like a little kid, like a stereotypic little kid with that hat with a propeller on it, like he's got that fucking thing on his head, for fuck's sakes. Like, that's how serious the game takes itself. It's so good, though. It's so good. For memorable parts, for me is, like I said, when Galuf dies, that hit hard for me because I never saw that one coming. And then when he burns the Moogle forest, I think. Like, all the Moogles live in a big forest. And Xdeath burns the whole forest, which I never really understood, and maybe I'm just remembering it wrong, because he's a fucking tree. Maybe you burn the forest trying to burn Xdeath, and then you burn the Moogle forest. I can't remember, but...
Yeah, I don't remember either.
I just remember the whole forest being on fire and being like, holy shit, and all the Moogles are like, why is this happening? Because they're like these peaceful little guys. They all live in there.
Oh, dude, that reminds me of the fucking SpongeBob meme where, like somebody crashes into something or breaks something, or, like, the town's set on fire and this guy's just randomly in the background, like, oh, my leg! Just picture the Moogles, like, doing that, is what I just pictured in my head.
Oh, man, it's so good, but sometimes so bad in a good way.
Yeah. It's like Starship Troopers.
Yeah, it is.
It's the Starship Troopers of Final Fantasy.
Yeah. Oh, man. And then Final Fantasy VI, I mean, that one's like an instant fucking classic. Like,
yeah, oh yeah.
Right from the intro, right? You've got the text wall, you've got the march of the fucking Magitech armor. Like, holy shit, dude.
The music. Oh my god. No,
yes.
There might not be a better, more inspired soundtrack than 6 besides maybe 8. And even then, like, I would say overall 6 probably has the most bangers on it.
Yeah. For me, Battle with the Four Fiends in Final Fantasy IV is my favorite Final Fantasy track of all time. Final Fantasy IV has a lot of good tracks, but if you're taking the whole soundtrack into consideration, it is, and I'm gonna be doing a top 10 Super NES OSTs at some point, and it is gonna be so hard to choose between Final Fantasy VI and Chrono Trigger.
Oh, dude, by the way, you know what we forgot to mention with Final Fantasy V?
What?
Gilgamesh.
Right, the fucking best part of the whole game.
Yeah.
Gilgamesh
Which
is the best.
You're gonna look. There's
a
a 14 quest.
Okay, yeah, I saw some of Ryan's Gilgamesh stuff.
Yeah.
I remember watching him stream that. But yeah, Gilgamesh starts in 5, is badass as fuck and hilarious. Like that's how good 5 was, that they can create this character that is like this interdimensional being at this point and is always awesome and is always fun. Like, he's not always funny, but he's always awesome. He's funny in a lot of them, but he's always awesome. He's so good. Like, his whole...
And he typically carries references from other games, too.
Yeah, and the cool thing is, I read it once, that he's not going... There's a whole thing, like, somebody did, like, a fucking whole, like, write-up trying to decipher what game he's going to in order, because in some of the later games he doesn't have weapons from the earlier games yet, and so like he was in, like, I'm pulling this out of my ass, but for example he would be in Final Fantasy 12 before he appeared in Final Fantasy 6, and stuff like that. Like, that's so cool to me. Like, he's not going through the games in chronological order. Like in 8, I can't remember. Something happens in another one of the ones where he loses some of his arms, and that's why he's got like those cardboard fucking arms coming off the side. And he's dead serious in 8, but at the same time, if you know the lore, you're like, of course, he's such a fucking goofy guy that when he lost his fucking arms, he's got cardboard fucking arms on the side.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
The fact that he comes in when Odin dies.
Yeah.
Just randomly, he just fucking shows up out of a portal and is like, oh, I guess I gotta fucking defeat Cypher now. Like,
yeah. But his whole objective is he wants to be more powerful than Bart's. He's like ashamed that Bart's beat him up. And his way of doing that is collecting the best weapons ever, right? And so the whole reason he shows up when Odin dies is Odin's fucking Xantetskin sword is stuck in the ground, and he's like, oh baby, now's my chance to get that weapon, right? Because he couldn't get it in 6, he couldn't get it in 7, but he's like, now's my fucking chance. Odin's not here, he's not holding that weapon, now I can get it, right?
He's the Johnny of Karate Kid of fucking Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
He gets beat by the little guy.
Yeah, and his whole life he's just like...
He just can't take it.
Yeah! Yeah, he literally is. It's... Fuck, man. Yeah. Gilgamesh is probably my favorite Final Fantasy character of all time. And then, what the fuck's his... he's a chicken in 14. What the fuck's his...
Enkidu.
Yeah, Enkidu. Yeah. That guy's fucking cool, too. He shows up in a couple of them. But yeah, Gilgamesh is awesome. And they bring Gilgamesh back in, I think, the GBA version of 6, right? They brought him as a summon or some shit, I
think
heard.
so.
Yeah. I've never played that version. I'd like to, just to see what Gilgamesh is like in it. But 6, so good. Such an iconic game in the series. Huge, again, like, whereas 4 was a massive turn for the series, 6 again was a massive turn, to the point where 7 and 8 had similar technology, like similar kind of worlds, because of how successful 6 was and how well 6 developed its world around that technology. Like, it was kind of like a Magitech steampunk fucking world that had this steam technology, as opposed to just like knights and stuff in the past, right? Like not that high fantasy stuff.
Yeah.
And its story, again, going to the realm of the summons, right? Like the Esper, the world of the Espers, like a big part of it is they're trying to open that gateway, right?
Well, and the fact that they made the main character part Esper.
Yeah, half Esper. Like, oh man, that game was so good. There's parts of that game that I really don't like. World of Ruin I absolutely hate. Like, it wasn't until it was either last year or the year before that I actually finished Final Fantasy VI, despite playing it a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
I've probably tried playing through it, I want to say 4 or 5 times, but I always would quit at World of Ruin because I fucking hate Celeste. I hate her so much. And she's the only fucking character you have when you get to World of Ruin. And I like Locke, I like Edgar, I like Sabin, I
Shadow.
like Shadow. Like there's so many of these great characters and they're all fucking gone. And if you're me when you're like 13, 15 years old, you ain't getting Shadow because you ain't waiting for that guy, because there was no like nothing guide wise back then that I knew of that told you had to wait for Shadow.
Well, and I like that those things can be optional and they have effects later on. Like,
yes,
you might let Shadow die, and then there might be like some dialogue later that talks about it, or like you might not ever pick up. Is it Sid that you can save or die or kill?
You can save them, and it's like super hard to do, and to the point where a lot of people don't think you can save Sid, but you can. There's an off-screen health bar for him, and it depends on what fish you bring to him and stuff like that. But yeah, man, I hate World of Ruin so much. And
the only thing that I really like about World of Ruin is the Cult of Kefka.
Yeah, that part was cool. Like the tower and shit.
Yeah, and the reason I like that is because like it's very human, right? Like all of a sudden this like, and you see it in real world cults, like people see an image of a god or whatever and they're like, this god could destroy us, but we're still here. So maybe if we worship him enough,
he'll spare us. Or
he'll spare us.
Yeah.
And so you have this Cult of Kefka that comes up after Kefka becomes the god, and it's like, that's you. I mean, you could see that happening. Like, if that were to happen in our world, like there would be people that would be like, oh, you know, like.
Especially like he's a tangible fucking god. Like he's there.
Yeah.
You can see him. He's fucking. He is all.
And he looks like it.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I did like that part. I'll give you that. I liked that whole... The tower was a fucking nightmare to climb, I remember, but...
Yeah, but the Kefka boss fight, though...
Here's the... Remember what I said about X-Death?
Yeah.
My Kefka boss fight was like one attack. So what I did... you get like Atma weapon or whatever, the lightsaber looking thing. And it deals damage based on your max HP. And the whole game, I was planning this out. I was like, we're going to get Locke to 999 HP. And then, so I knew I was going to do that. But what I didn't know was that there's a weapon that allows you to attack, I think it was 6 times. It would let you attack 6 times on your turn. Or... maybe just twice on your turn, but you know how if you have a really high either speed or attack rating, they'll attack more than once because they'll be like, right? So, anyways, I got Locked to 9999 hit points. I got him the Atma weapon, and then I got him that item, which I'm pretty sure is at the top of that Kefka tower, that like worship cult tower. And I equipped it on him. It's like an accessory or a relic, they call it, I think. And so, anyways, when it got to Kefka's final form, it was Locke's turn. I hit attack once, and he did 9999 like 12 times, and the boss fight was over. So I can't comment on how epic that boss fight was because it was over in like 2 seconds.
By the way, the answer you were looking for was Soul of Thamasa.
What's the Soul of Thamasa? That's the item?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's probably what it was then. It was like, oh my god, dude. I did not like... Another thing I didn't like about 6 was all the throwaway characters. Like, you had these really good characters, I feel like, before World of Ruin happened. And then after World of Ruin, you're getting, like, Umaro. You're getting, like, fucking Strago, fucking Realm. I hated them. There are people that like them because they're like, oh, they're really powerful, whatever. I don't care. They have, like, 2 seconds of story and then have nothing to do with the game at all. And one of the characters that's better than all of them is fucking Go-Go, and he has literally no story, so...
What kills me about that is, too, and I love... And this is what I love about 6, too, is that Go-Go, there were so many theories about Go-Go and like how he could be... Wasn't it that he could be... Was it
Bartz's,
Locke's wife?
I heard he could be like Bart's dad or some shit. There's like rumors about that too.
Like, I want to say that the big rumor about Gogo was that he was somebody's wife, if I remember right.
Okay, because Gogo shows up in Final Fantasy V first. He's actually you go into a sunken, because all the crystals are in like these towers in Final Fantasy V, and one of the towers collapsed underwater, and it's an optional side quest that you go into this tower underwater and you fight Gogo, and you fight him, but the fight is like you don't actually fight him. You just copy whatever he does. That's the only way to win. And then he's like, I see you are a fan of mimicry as well, or some shit. And then he gives you the last piece of the crystal, and it teaches you the mimic job class. Mm-hmm. And then yeah, he shows up in 6, and I remember people thinking that Gogo might have been Bart's dad. But there's also some other theories. I don't know. It couldn't be Locke's wife, because Locke's wife, Rachel, she's dead. Like,
yeah, I knew that because he tried to use the Phoenix.
Yeah. That's a good story. I like that sub-story. I do like how it has like a lot of sub-stories. Like 6 is really good in the same way 12 is really good, where there's not really a main character. Like the main cast, and I'm talking about the guys you meet before World of Ruin, are so well done for the most part that almost any of them could be a main character. Like their backstories are so good. Their character development's so good. Some of them, like, obviously it dithers off as the game goes on, but actually not even, because in World of Ruin, a lot of them, when their story started to dither on in the first half of the game, in World of Ruin it really comes back, because even what the fuck is the samurai guy's name? Cyan or something like that?
Yeah, something like that.
I remember he's writing love letters to this girl, and I think he ended up being the one that killed her husband or something like that. But he's writing these love letters because he doesn't want to like break her heart, like having her find out that her husband's dead or something like that. Like there's some cool fucking stories in World of Ruin, but that whole
is that Cian that does that? Because I know Cian's the one that his wife and kid die at Doma.
Yeah, his wife and kid die, and I think he kills the husband of the opposing army or something.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, in like revenge or something, and then that wife is the one he ends up writing these love letters to in the World of Ruin, and he's writing them as, and it's kind of like his way of coping with the loss of his wife, while also like not wanting this wife to find out that her husband died or something, especially at his hands. And then I think he ends up like confronting her, like, but like half-assed. Like his plan is to tell her that he's the one that killed her husband, but then he kind of like pussies out, but then she kind of like realizes it and kind of like is like, I understand you did this, but I do thank you for like writing these letters to me and stuff, something like that. But it's just,
oh, by the way, I looked it up. Setzer's lost lover, Daryl.
That's who they think Gogo is.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. They think Gogo's a girl.
I guess so. Oh. Also, it is rumored that Gogo is the optional boss from 5. Yeah. But possibly kind of like Gilgamesh went through a dimensional warp.
Yeah. Gogo I think is definitely from 5, but I could see Gogo being this chick from 5 that ended
especially since Gilgamesh does the same thing.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And then ends up in 6 and falls in love with who did you say? Cyan.
Setzer.
Oh, okay, yeah, I could see that. But yeah, there's just there is a lot of like really good world building in 6. A lot of really good lore in 6, especially like with the whole Magicite, the Espers thing.
Yeah.
How they learn to like harness the power of this stuff.
Well, and like a lot of people don't. The big thing about Kefka is a lot of people don't realize that he's not as simple as people think. Like, he is a simple villain. You know, he has a motive.
Yeah, he's kind of like chaotic evil in a way.
Yeah, but what a lot of people don't realize is that he was actually forced to be that way due to experiments on
Yeah.
him at a young age that caused him to go into psychosis. So he's he's been able to hold that psychosis down enough to become a prominent
Function.
figure in the prominent figure in the Gestalian Empire, gain that power, and then when he gets that power,
He can set her loose,
that's
baby.
that's when the fucking psychosis really shows off. Because
Yeah.
like you do see him do things like the poisoning of Doma. You do see him do things like the burning of the kingdom. Like
Right,
you
the
see
Sand
him.
Kingdom. I can't remember. Yeah.
I can't think of it either. But uh, you see him like tell a soldier to wipe off his boot because he got sand on it. Like you see this
Right.
crazy ass motherfucker that's like, I want to blow everything up, but then he actually fucking does it.
Yeah.
And no other villain to that point had done that. Like,
yeah.
no other villain in Final Fantasy had been like, fuck you, I'm succeeding, stop me.
Yeah.
And then does it. And then it's up to the player to go through the second half of the game in the world that Kefka destroyed.
Yeah.
So, in reality, Kefka succeeded in what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
He just didn't live long enough to enjoy it.
Yeah, because you'll hear people say, because I'm always like, Kefka won, right? Like, he did. He won. He got what he wanted. He won. But you'll hear people say he didn't win because the heroes kill him in the end. It's like, yeah, they kill him in the end, but after he fucking succeeded in doing what he wanted to do.
After the world was all busted to shit.
Yeah, exactly. He won. He did what he wanted to do. I can't think if any other Final Fantasy characters actually win. Not really. I guess. Yeah, I don't think so. Hey.
Yeah, not really.
Not really. But yeah, Kefka is a pretty good villain. What was I gonna say? Oh yeah, so it actually kind of ties into sociopaths and like actual psychopaths because, like what you were saying is when he is able to hold it together, right? In order to increase in the ranks and like basically become this exalted fucking guy in the empire. But there's like countless studies that show that psychopaths and sociopaths can fake not being a sociopath, right? They don't do it well sometimes, but they can fake it, and that's exactly what Kefka was doing. Like, because you can see parts when he's actually being himself, and then you can see that it's not that he's holding it together, he's pretending he's not a fucking lunatic, right? Basically. And it's
it's like when he poisons. Yeah, and it's like when he poisons Doma, and you're like, and all the soldiers are like, "Oh yeah, you probably shouldn't do that," and he's like, "Oh okay," and then he just does it anyway. He's like, "Fuck you," and then he just poisons it, and you're like, "Yeah," and he's just like,
"Not my water."
Does it anyway. Like, and it cracks me up because like a lot of people don't realize that if you look at Final Fantasy VI in depth, Kefka is actually a very good study on psychosis and how even people with that kind of mentality can become powerful and run nations. I mean, look at Hitler.
A lot of people that are sociopaths are very successful people because if you think of like, especially in like the business world nowadays,
they don't care who they step over.
Yes, exactly. You don't care who you hurt on the way to the top, right? So it's a quick.
Well, yeah, and it's like with that we see what those characters do, right? Like we see the psychosis and we see the different places where we're allowed to pick apart what Kefka is doing. Like we can see when he's not, like you said, we can see when he's not being crazy because he's trying to hide it. Yeah. And we can see when he really fucks up and just really becomes crazy. But to the characters, like
they don't
Emperor Gestalt, that he doesn't see that part of Kefka.
Yeah.
He sees the court mage. He sees the results of the experiments that Kefka has done, like how Kefka experiments on Terra and fucking gets her to kill Gestalian soldiers. Like he's doing all this shit and getting rewarded for it.
Yeah.
And so not only does it show that he's getting results for his emperor, but he's also satiating that lust for blood that he has behind the scenes.
And power.
So he's getting rewarded twice.
Mm-hmm.
One, being able to do the heinous acts that he commits, and two,
the reward for doing them.
The emperor stroking his dick for it.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like,
yep.
So
he's doing what he deep down loves to do, and he is gaining power for doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good. He's a really good villain, definitely. I
agree, and I think he's a lot more complex than people give him credit for.
Yeah, same here. You'll hear people say like he's just the Joker, but in Final Fantasy or whatever, and he definitely has some Joker like attributes and stuff like that.
Oh well, yeah.
But the fact that it was like, the fact that the Magicite and the Espers really tie into every single aspect of that world, right? Like, they experimented on him in order to make these Magitech Knights be a thing, right? Like, he was kind of, like, in a way, like a prototype Magitech Knight, but it was just, like, way too strong. Like, it just fucked him up. I wonder, like, if there's ever, like, a thing that tells you, like, what he was like before that. Like, I don't think
I don't think so, but I think it'd be really cool.
Yeah. Like, not even, like, a whole game, but just, like, something telling you, like, what his life was like before that.
See, that's one of the things that I really like about, and I keep talking about 14, but this is why, because it's such a high-quality game, and it's because, like, they released these short stories, right?
Right.
That you can play the entirety of 14 and never read these short stories, and you will still very, very thoroughly enjoy the story of 14. But these side stories, they tell you about even one of the main villains. They go back and they tell you what his life was like before all this happened. They tell you, like, where the scales tipped. Like, what did he go through even after becoming the villain,
right?
That humanizes him.
Right.
That while you'll see this crazy bastard that's just seems like he's wanting nothing but the genocide of millions and billions, but that maybe he has a motive.
Like, there's maybe a reason for this.
Yeah, maybe what happened to him and why he's doing what he's doing is more human than people see. And that's why I really love the side stories in 14, because it dives into that a lot.
I'm weird in that I like both. Like, I can't remember what it was. I put, like, this thing. I think it was just, like, a Facebook group or a forum or something, and I was like, what do you prefer? A villain that has a good reason for what he's doing, or a force of nature villain? And I kind of really like both when they're done well.
I do too.
Like, you look at Sin. Like, Sin is like a fucking force of nature. Like, it's a living force of nature. But then, for example, in Dragon Quest IV, the main villain is completely fucking right in what he does or why he's doing what he does. Like, I like both of those things as long as they're done right. And I feel like Kefka kind of drops the ball in that aspect. Like, there's not really like, because like we were asking, like, I wonder what his life was like before this. And if you knew that, he would have that aspect, but he doesn't really. So it kind of drops the ball there. But I also don't mind, like, I'm a Dragon Quest fan, right? I don't mind, like, this is a demon lord. That's who he is, right? Like, he's a bad guy. Like, I don't mind, like, the he's just a bad guy, okay? Like, I don't mind that either. But to me, my favorites are definitely, like, this guy is, I don't know what the word is I'm looking for, but, like, he's not wrong in what he's doing. Like, based on what has happened to this guy, what he is doing is not necessarily completely wrong. Like, he's righteous.
His motive is right, but his methods are wrong.
Yeah. Or something got corrupted in acquiring what he needed to acquire, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like that. But like I said, I also love the force of nature. Like, just like not even X-Death, but Sin. Because X-Death was there, and then he'd, like, do crazy shit and then leave and then come back. Whereas Sin was like this, you never know when he's going to show up, and when he does, there is fuck all you can do about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you
and the cool thing is that even though Sin was a force of nature, they gave him that that other side.
Yeah, they kind of mixed the two. Hey, with him.
Yeah, yeah, it was very nice. And it was like the plot twist that you may or may not have seen coming, but at the same
Yeah.
time, it didn't matter if you saw it coming because it was so well done.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, what is your biggest standout moment from 6?
Um, I think there's obviously the ghost train suplex,
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
but I think probably the moment that hit me the hardest was probably Doma slash Cian's family.
When they get
Um,
killed.
yeah, because you're like, at first you're like, it's kind of like what I said earlier about how if you kill NPCs, no one gives a shit
Yeah.
kind of thing. 6 kind of flipped that on its head a little
Yeah.
bit because when Kefka poisons Doma, and you're like, holy shit, this is awesome. This dude's fucking nuts. What is he gonna do next? Like, you play 6 to find out what Kefka's gonna do next,
Yeah,
right?
that's true, yeah.
And then immediately following that scene, you're there with Cian, and the ghost train is showing up, and the souls of the dead are leaving from Doma,
Right.
and
I
all
forgot
of a
about
sudden, you see a wife and child on the
Yeah.
train, and Cian recognizes them, and it's his wife and kid. And I think now, probably more than ever, that hits, because,
Yeah.
I have a wife and a kid on the way.
that. Yeah, no doubt.
And so now it goes from these are nameless NPCs on a city that no one really gives a shit about because no one's really been to Doma or really gotten any information about it other than that Kefka's gonna poison the well, right?
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden there's real stakes.
Yeah.
And this nameless NPC woman and her kid mean something. And you see that heartfelt moment with Cian and you're like, oh my god. Like, before that we had Ultros and you're like, this is a lighthearted, funny game.
Yeah,
And then all of a
Ultros.
sudden it's like, fuck you, we're not doing that anymore.
Yeah.
Turns out it's sad. It's like,
Turns out it's sad.
that's one of the most standout moments I think in any video game, really, is that moment with Cian and his wife on the ghost train.
Yeah, I completely actually forgot about that part. I remember the ghost train, and like you said, fucking Suplex City, bitch. I remember that part, but I forgot about that because there's like a little ghost, like the mom, and then the little ghost. I remember it now that you mention it. That is fucking fuck. And Cian's like not even like one of my favorite characters, but like the fact that you're like there with him, like they're not random NPCs because they're like connected to a party member. But yeah, no, that definitely hits hard. For me, I don't even fucking know what the, like, a part of me, it's kind of like a double. The probably when Locke tries to revive his wife or whatever with the Phoenix, because it's like he goes to the Phoenix cave, like he does like the hardest fucking dungeon in the game and tries to solo it basically just because he heard that the Phoenix can revive his wife, and then he does it and he brings her back for like a little bit. And then she's like, this isn't how it's supposed to be, and kind of like just goes. And you just see his like heart break, because like the whole game, like he's kind of like, at first he kind of like doesn't want people to know about it, and then it kind of like comes up a couple times, and you realize like his whole life from here on out is kind of like fucked because of losing her, and like he would do anything to get her back, and he does, and he gets her back, and then she just fucking like. She can't like come back to life, and then the worst part of all is he ends up with Celeste. Fuck that bitch, right? like come on, Locke, you could get so much better.
Oh man.
But yeah, that's probably the most memorable part for me. Another part that's super memorable is when Celeste tries to kill herself, and it's super shocking, really. Like, it really shocked me when I played it, and then deep down there's a part of me that wished she succeeded because I hate her so much. But that part shocked the shit out of me.
I know.
Like, Final Fantasy up to this point has had death like quite a bit. Like, you look at even Final Fantasy 2, people are like blowing themselves up left, right, and center, like just so you can continue your journey. I can't remember exactly because it's been so long since I played Final Fantasy 2. But isn't there a guy that's like this engine is about to blow up and in this like tower, and he's like you guys, you must escape. And you're like, okay, but why don't you come? And he's like, no, I can't. I must remain behind. And
I don't remember, but it might be.
He just fucking blows up for no reason. I remember that part. I can't remember if that was 2 or 3, but like he stays behind, and like he totally could have left with the party and been okay, but he stays behind and gets blown up. Maybe it's Yang in 4. I don't remember, but it's like this. That's like the worst death in the series to me. But there's never been, like, I don't think it ever happens again either, where there's like a fucking straight up attempted fucking suicide in a Final Fantasy game.
Not that I can think of. I know, what's funny about that is that, like, it's, and I almost wonder if it was kind of like if it was inspired by Japan's high suicide rate.
Oh, it could have been, yeah.
You know, because
they've
like
had that for years.
Yeah, they've had that for decades, and it's like I wonder almost if like that was the developers kind of showing that. It. Yeah, because like because she lives, she goes on to help save the world.
Yeah,
and I think that could be like a commentary on life is worth living.
You don't know what
you don't know what impact.
Awaits.
Yeah, you don't know what impact you might have on the world
if
you never see it through. And so I think maybe in some regard, maybe I don't know, maybe I'm just pulling that out of my ass.
No,
but
it totally could be.
I think it could be like the developer saying like keep fighting the good fight. Yeah. So.
And then I wonder if even they realized, like, we may have gone a bit far here, and that's why they never do it again, right? Cause,
yeah, it could be.
Like, that was
and there's only so many times you can pull that move.
No doubt.
You know what I mean? And that's the thing. Like, I think that's been my problem with modern Final Fantasy is that instead of pushing the envelope like they did with 6 with that scene, they're playing it safe and going with concepts they've gone with before, or like in 4 where they bring everybody back, and now... Yeah. That's the big thing now. Like nobody dies and everything's okay. Like
yeah, but
to me, my favorite Final Fantasy stories have those stakes. See, and that's why I don't like the Deus Ex Machina, the super fake outs constantly. Like perfect example, 15. Noctis dies.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
And he's dead.
That's what I was gonna say because you were like, I don't like.
That's the main fucking character, and they're like. You know, and to me, I don't care that he died.
Oh, really?
I'm not saying that I'm not. No. I'm not saying like that I don't care emotionally that he died.
Oh, like it doesn't offend you that he died. Like it doesn't ruin the game. It makes it better.
Yeah, exactly.
It fucking made it so good.
I don't, and a lot of people are like, well, I feel like I wasted my time if he's just gonna die in the end. But he died saving the fucking world.
Yeah, dude.
Like
when you said
and he got to reunite with his queen. Like that was the whole point. Like
yeah, fuck me.
It's okay to die. It's okay to fucking kill a character.
One of the best endings in my opinion. But when you said when modern Final Fantasy throws that out but it's like Final Fantasy 15 is modern Final Fantasy. And,
that's true.
And it's good, I think, but most people don't. But I think it's good. I think we should definitely do a second part of this video because we've taken a lot of time. Like we're probably looking at about almost 3 hours here. But so I think a good place to end it is here because this is kind of the end of the first era, really, if you think about it, of Final Fantasy, right?
The Nintendo era.
Yeah, you've got the NES and you've got the Super NES era. So when we find time, we'll start at Final Fantasy 7 and go up to maybe 12 or something like that. I don't know. maybe I'll be further in 14 at that point too, and then we can talk about that once we get to 13 to 15. Maybe 16 will be out. I don't think we'll wait that long, but
we'll revisit this conversation in 3 years.
Yeah, no doubt. But yeah, thank you so much for taking time to do this with me.
Yeah, no problem. This was fun.
Yeah,
I had a lot of fun.
It was great. I've been wanting to do something like this for quite a while, and I was talking with my buddy Mike, aka DG, and I was saying like I want to do this, and I want to go through all the games, and I wanted to do it with you because me and you we see a lot of the same things in a lot of the games, and we like a lot of games that a lot of people don't like. Like you'll see a lot of the Final Fantasy fan base very divided and being like, I hate this game, but I love this game, and this is the only good game kind of thing. But I feel like me and you pretty much like every game in the series. Like we can find good things about every game for the most part.
Except 13.
I actually see good things in 13.
I don't.
Not Lightning Returns. That is the worst game. But like a lot of people will just hate on 15. A lot of people just hate on 8. Whereas yourself and we both enjoyed them for the most part. Like I really like both of those games.
Yeah.
And even you, like I don't like 2. I will straight up say I don't like Final Fantasy 2. But even you said you don't mind really Final Fantasy 2. So I feel like it's good to talk to somebody else that pretty much likes the whole series, you know?
Well, and we can be objective about it too. It doesn't have to be this pissing contest of, well, blah blah blah. You know, it's like we actually can discuss it rationally,
absolutely.
and we can kind of, you know,
there's a lot of, on the internet nowadays. You see a lot of like everybody, and I've mentioned this to like friends and stuff before too. Is like you people need to be able to discuss things without taking it as a personal insult. Like. Mm-hmm. Like, if your favorite Final Fantasy character is Cloud, well, I don't like Cloud. Because, to me, Cloud barely exists as a character. But to you, maybe there's things you see about Cloud that I don't see. Or you like things about him that I don't like about people. You know what I mean? Like, everybody's different. Like,
well, and it's like, for me, everybody relates to different characters differently.
Yeah.
So, like,
based on your personal...
Yeah, and it's like how I came up with my username was because like I kind of at the time didn't know what I wanted to do, and I was confused about who I was like as a creator and stuff like
Sexually.
that. And I had yeah, of course. Fuck you. No, but like with Cloud, he didn't know who he was, and then finally, you know, kind of bucked up, figured it out. And became the soldier first class he was always supposed to be, and here I am, and that's what I did was become soldier first class. So
yeah,
you know, and that's so for me the mascot had always been Cloud, but you know, like for you, the slime, you know, like
what?
Yeah. Yeah, but no, like your channel mascot's a slime. You really love Dragon Quest. You really like resonate with those games. So that's like your thing, you know. And I don't, but that's okay because we don't have to like the same things, and we don't even have to like the same things about the things that we like.
Yeah,
like,
no shit. Yeah,
you know, like
and you can help each other find the things that guy likes.
Yeah, you're like, right? You know,
you can see a positive.
Like, yeah, so like I may not like how they handled. I don't know, in 8, like certain characters, and you might like that, and that's fine. So then when it comes to something else where, you know, you don't like something but I do, then it kind of like we can kind of meet in the middle and say this is why we like it.
Yeah.
And then understand each other better.
Yes,
but some people
absolutely.
A lot of people just do not want to understand each other, and that's the problem. Like it's when I was dealing with the remake situation, and everybody was like, fuck you, you just hate 7, blah, 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 even though my fucking name is Soldier First Class, you idiots. Anyway, but, like, a lot of these people were like, well, you don't like this, so you must hate the whole thing. And I was like, no, you can be objective about things and critique the things you like. I think it's better to critique the things you like because it means you want them to be even better.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, like, I hate this. You can't have a rational discussion because everybody deals in so many absolutes anymore.
Yes.
That you just cannot have a discussion.
Yeah, it's very difficult. Well, even like just now when you said why your username was Soldier First Class, that is never how I saw Cloud. That's never how I saw him. But now that you mention it like that, I kind of see that, right? Like I just saw him as this guy that pretended to be this fucking other guy for half the game, and then just kind of like was barely there for the rest of it. But yeah, he comes into his own, right? Like he's confused as to who the fuck he is, and then he finally eventually learns the truth and comes into his own and stuff like that. I was gonna say when you're saying about Final Fantasy VIII, like if there's a character that I like and you don't or whatever, do you like Irvin?
He's all right.
I love Irvin, mainly because I don't know why actually. Because he's like your typical like thinks he's a pussy magnet, but you know what I mean? He's like that guy. Fucking love him because of that, and he's fucking good in battle. Like that's like the main reasons. But most people do not like Irvin. Like, and I get
dresses like a fucking cowboy too. Is the best part.
Yeah. Irvin is like that guy that's like, while you were on the internet, I was studying the sword. And like but he's actually kind of cool. But he's also that guy.
He's like a weeb that they just shoved into Final Fantasy VIII.
Yeah. He's fucking awesome. But I get why people don't like him. Like he like barely exists after the attempt of the sorceress's like life.
And the funny part is he doesn't even pull it off, and it's still like you just don't care because he's just this fuck up character.
Yeah, he's the best.
He just fucks everything up.
He's
dude,
awesome.
Oh my god, I could go on all day about the quirky shit in Final Fantasy VIII because I fucking love that game.
He like shows up. He's like, "Let's go, ladies," and he'll like march off, and the ladies will just like leave him. Like he's like dude, that guy. He's fucking
you know
so
what
good.
though? I throw him a bone every time you do the base mission. I always send him with like Selfie and Quistis.
Oh, I always send the girls there because they're gonna go die. Like I don't really use them.
Yeah, I always send him to the base with Irvin.
Oh man. Oh yeah, and then at least he's with the babes. he gets his time with them. Finally.
He gets his moment. Oh my god, doesn't he trip on the stairs in the prison and like falls
he's going down the stairs. He's the best. Dude, he's the best. He's fucking the best.
Oh my god, dude. I fucking love that shit. I'm okay with stupid shit once in a while. Like
Same.
A lot of people like when I was talking about the plot ghosts in Remake. Like if they hadn't been in such a serious story, I probably wouldn't care.
If they would have put like a goofy spin on it, they could have made it work, kind of.
Yeah, but like, dude, Final Fantasy VIII is full of those moments, and it's so great because, like, at the end of the day, like, people forget that these characters are like 16 and 17 years old.
Yeah. But
they act like adults.
Yeah.
So it's really cool every once in a while to see them in like their puppy love phase, right? Like where like Irvin's like that guy who like just hit puberty, so he thinks he's this giant pussy magnet, but he's actually like this just awkward motherfucker the whole time. And you're just like, okay, like I get it. Like this is how I was in high school, so I get it, you know? Like,
yeah. Or like even Laguna, like it gets the leg cramps and shit, like stuff like. Oh man, it's so good. But anyways, I think this is a good place to wrap part 1. I am looking forward to Final Fantasy 7, Final Fantasy 8, Final Fantasy 9, and all those as well. But
oh yeah, for sure.
If you want to find us online, I am generally, if you go anywhere, I'm Dukey03 on Twitch, on Twitter. We also have a Facebook group, Luminaries of the Livestream. If you search that, that'll be there. I'm on Instagram as Corey Dukey, Corey Dukey03. And then if you want to drop your where they can find you,
I'm pretty much Soldier First Class on everything. So, but I'm mostly retired, so you can just probably find me on Twitter at soldfirst_class. And then that's about it. I'm on Twitter quite a bit, so.
All right. Well, thanks for taking some time out of your day and joining me. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope everyone who's listening and watching enjoyed this. And if you're watching this on YouTube, drop some comments. Let us know what you liked about each of the games, what you didn't like about each of the games.
What you like about us and don't like.
Yeah, what you like about us, don't like about us, all that fun stuff. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching and listening. And again, Soldier, thanks for joining me. And
Hey, no problem, man. I had a blast.
have a good one, guys.